Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bitcoin News Weekly Live. I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and we got a big one today. Last week, Trump's war against the Federal Reserve escalated to a whole new level. He's gone from calling Jerome Powell names like dumb guy and stubborn mule to outright firing Fed Governor Lisa Cook for mortgage fraud. Now, the Fed is supposed to be independent, a quasi-governmental institution insulated from political pressure. Cook is suing to keep her job, and Powell insists that he cannot be removed from his chairmanship. But the truth is, cause is a pretty broad term, and Trump is testing the limits. Why is he doing this? Well, it's because his Treasury needs to refinance nearly $10 trillion of debt in 2025. And lowering rates could save $1 trillion in interest. That's the game right there. Whether Cook wins her lawsuit or not, the damage is already done. America is starting to look like a banana republic. We just saw Erdogan in Turkey do the same thing, seizing control of the central bank. And Turkey has been living with inflation over 75% for much of the last 2 years. But the thing is, the United States is not Turkey. The dollar is still the world's reserve currency. And now Trump is turning monetary policy into a soap opera, eroding trust in the very foundation of the global financial system. Now, contrast that with Bitcoin. From day one, its monetary policy has been fixed, unchangeable, and immune to politics. Go ahead and call Bitcoin stupid or stubborn as much as you like. Its fixed 21 million supply cap ain't changing. And if the world is going to have a stable economic foundation for decades ahead, it won't be found in the dollar. It will be found in Bitcoin. So yes, thank you very much for tuning in. Today, I am very grateful to be joined by Julian Figueroa. How are you doing, man?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, what a gong show this week, eh?
Hey, yes, it's getting wilder out there, and especially we're dealing with the dollar here, right? And lots of the world's trade depends on it, and it is just a complete soap opera, as I just said. So you are a filmmaker in Bitcoin. You are the co-founder of GetBase TV, a wonderful YouTube channel putting out amazing content of people actually using Bitcoin, talking about Bitcoin in different ways than you hear from usual news shows like ours and whatnot. So yes, tell people about GetBase and what you've been up to over the last summer.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again. Yeah, GetBased, our mission is to awaken the individual. There are a lot of people who are so bent out of shape, frustrated over the system, and they keep looking for solutions that have been tried, like voting, like going to a protest, like boycotts, and they don't work. And I think awakening the individual is all about adopting Bitcoin, but also adopting a whole other set of values and mindsets. And so we're basically trying to echo all that through our content. We do things like documentaries. We've had a bunch of really cool projects. I'll drop a couple of them, but yeah, we went to Peru last year. We did a whole documentary on the circular economies there. We did a trip to Jekyll Island, did a little collaboration with Ian Carroll, who's quite a big producer on things like conspiracy theories. And we did a whole, unraveling of the Federal Reserve origin. And then this year we just wrapped, and it should be coming out in about a month or two, a big documentary on Japan's Bitcoin adoption and the Metaplanet story, the origins of Metaplanet, and sort of the big opportunity unlocking there with all the amazing central bank policies that have come out of Japan. And then for me, most recently, I just launched a show called Exit Manual, which is sort of a weekly diatribe, go out and touch grass and learn about Bitcoin and kind of like exiting the system show, starring yours truly, where I rant for 5 to 7 minutes about a topic like Bitcoin and just finding freedom. But yeah, that's kind of what we do.
Cool, man. Yeah, well, you just had the launch of the Exit Manual, and I actually have the first one loaded up, ready to go. Should we give the people a preview of your new show?
Sure thing.
All right, nice. Yeah, let's do it.
You want to know what makes no sense? You make 4 times more than your parents ever did, yet you own nothing. They got houses. We get rentals from a guy with 8 mortgages. They had kids. We get inbred pets that we treat like children. She's blind, but I still love her. Ah, ew. They got careers. We get loans to buy Chipotle in 4 installments. The economy is the money is and you're not crazy for thinking that something is off. But chances are you've never had the time to figure out why. And so we spend 40 hours a week earning money, but no time asking what it actually is. We're too busy trying to survive. And that's why we're always looking for someone to blame. Is it the corporations, the billionaires, the politicians, the capitalists, the socialists, the Jews? Hey Siri, how Jewish do I have to be in order to make that Jew joke?
At least 31%.
Ah, just made the cutoff. 23andMe, 32%. I'm allowed to make those jokes.
Video,
And yet,
my phone hears my own voice and was like, I didn't get that.
Nice. Well, yeah, I'll let people go and find it themselves. You can go check out Julian's his X page. Look up the exit manual on YouTube. But yeah, no, as you can see, the production quality is extremely high, and this is the message that we want to get out to people. Right? Everybody can really sense that something is up, but they just really don't know what it is, and it's the money. The money is broken, and people need to figure out that that is the root cause. So I think that you are doing great work over there. Just a little behind the scenes for that first episode, like how much time went into writing it, producing it, shooting it? What was the workflow like there?
Oh man, writing it is the longest part, always the longest part. Yeah, you just spend like, you'll get like an outline done, that'll take 2 hours, and then you'll do a first draft, and then you'll just like get away from it for a day or two and then come back and you're like, I don't like this. But all in all, like that's like 16, 17 hours just to write a 4-minute script that you're like really happy with. And I'm working on getting that process down. And then filming's been fun because I haven't done a weekly show in a while. Like, I mean, you've seen some of my videos, they take a few months to produce sometimes, and it'll be like one big trip, and then we're in the post for a long time. Filming it is like 8-9 hours. I live in such a awesome, like you'll see it in the series. Like I live in the Pacific Northwest. So, I mean, whenever it's not raining here, it's like, it looks magical. So part of the show's ethos is like, go out and touch grass. And like, cause I felt like I could do this show in an office, but it wouldn't get the point across as well. Like this is about exiting the system. It also means like leave your office, leave your cubicle, like go out, a little bit, expand your mind. And then editing, we have a fantastic editor at GetBased, Benjamin Cote, also a Bitcoiner who has his own French YouTube channel called Jin B. He does all the editing for this, and yeah, I think that's like 2 days worth of editing, but it's quite a production. The nice thing is that if you know Isabella's show, Isabel Santos has a show called BTC Isla. It's very similar format where, again, write a script, go out, film it in a bunch of different locations, and then, edit it together. We've been doing that show every week for about a year. And so we were like, let's do another one. Right. So yeah, similar process. All in all, it's a super fun show. The hardest part is like, I'm a very visual guy. So I love getting props to like explain certain concepts. And so I just like, I'm really worried that after a year, I'm just gonna have like a giant box of like random shit for the show. Like the one the other day, I have like a megaphone, and I'm like, what am I going to use this again? Like, I guess I'll have to incorporate it into more videos, but I have a whole bunch of random Bitcoin props, and it's all fun, but I'm like, I'm accumulating all this stuff.
I mean, that's just part of being in video production, right? You just,
yeah. Well, camera gear is one thing because you can use it again, but some of these like props are like very specific. Like, I bought a stack of CDs just to like illustrate a point, right? And I'm like, well, I'm never going to use this.
You're not going to use that. No, for sure. Nice, man. Yeah, well, I think it's awesome work what you're doing, and the fact that it's weekly, right? You hold yourself accountable, and you can see the progression of growth week after week, and it's an amazing project. I wish you the best with it. And you've already got 700, 800 subs, right? And you're just
that blew me away. I wasn't expecting that. We were talking about how like, yeah, it's probably gonna take us like a whole quarter to get to like 1,000, like probably be about like 12, 15 videos to get there, and some really like nice people, yourself included, have just been so nice at sharing it. And like I've gotten all these tweets and tags on Noster, and I'm like just blown away by the niceness of everyone. Very grateful for that. So that's super cool. The mission from here is like, my big thing is like, we got to get this stuff outside the Bitcoin echo chamber. The Bitcoin media space, it's amazing. We have so many talented people, but YouTube and a lot of these algorithms, they like to pigeonhole your niche. And our niche has a very hard time breaking outside of like the 100,000 view barometer, I find. And that's basically, I would say there's probably about, 200,000 Bitcoin maxis, probably at least 50,000 people who consume Bitcoin content on the daily. So my goal with this is like, I want to break out, expand that audience, have conversations with people who are still very, very skeptical about Bitcoin.
Yeah. And this is the perfect thing to do it with, right? Because as we said in the beginning, people understand something is fundamentally wrong, but they just can't put their finger on it. And the amazing thing is that Bitcoin can help fix these problems. So let's dive into Bitcoin right now. We are here with the Bitcoin News Weekly newsletter. It comes out every Monday morning, 7 a.m., straight into your inbox. And then we break it down live on YouTube, X, and LinkedIn for all of your viewing pleasure. So if you're watching it live right now, go hit that like button, subscribe, share this video so that more people understand what is going on in the world of Bitcoin, get caught up, and get ready for a new month ahead, September. Historically, Bitcoin's toughest month, price action wise. But as we can see with Trump battling against the Fed, might get a rate cut this month, and things might push forward. We lost Julian, but I'm sure he'll be back. But yes, let's dive into the headlines here with our newsletter. The title of this newsletter is Institutions Rush to Bitcoin as Trump Mounts Pressure on the Fed. Every class of institutional investor is increasing Bitcoin exposure as Trump uses legal battles to push for easier monetary policy. So let's get right into it. And we start off with the adoption section. Every week we start right here. And this is a cool little story out of the University of Tampa is launching its first Bitcoin course this year, taught in partnership with the local Bitcoin Bay Foundation. So this is Tampa Bay, Florida. They've got one of the strongest Bitcoin meetups in, I would say, America. They built a giant pirate ship for their big parade last year. And now they are teaming up with the local university to help teach Bitcoin. And so if you go here, click on it, you can see that the course includes, of course, none other than the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. So yes, do you think that we'll be seeing more of this, Julian? Bitcoin on the syllabus in colleges?
Yeah, there's a UBC, University of British Columbia professor that's a big part of our meetups here in Vancouver, and he's been teaching like this stuff for 8-9 years, and he always notes like during bull cycles there's this just like massive demand to have a blockchain or Bitcoin course at the university, so they usually throw one. But he's actively working to try and get it into their economics syllabus. It's kind of crazy that like a lot of kids will get economics degrees, but there's no course on like the history of money. And I feel like that's so fundamental to understanding economics, and yet it's not in there. But I think the Bitcoiners will eventually get that message through that like, look, if you're going to study this stuff, you have to see the origins of money. And if you really want to understand inflation, you got to look all the way back. And it's super cool. Like I'm curious what this course covers if it goes really deep, because I know the Bitcoin Standard, half that book is just economic or monetary history, and then the other half is like Bitcoin. You know, so.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got the University of Wyoming. They have a Bitcoin curriculum, and they're actually putting out Bitcoin-focused research. The guys who wrote Resistance Money, one of them is a professor there, and he's leading that effort. And so we have different, and then of course Cornell. We had Lisa Hu's daughter. She created a Bitcoin program there. They have a great meetup, and they're pushing Bitcoin education over at Cornell. So we're seeing this pop up around the country, as you can see in Canada as well, and around the world. So Bitcoin education is so important, and it's all part of the mission, right? Again, people are trying to figure out what's wrong, and you got to know the history of money first before you can really understand why Bitcoin is the answer to a lot of these problems. So yeah, very cool to see Bitcoin education coming up. And then in more technical news, we have Tether launches USDT on Bitcoin using RGB, enabling users to hold and transfer Tether alongside their Bitcoin in the same wallet. This allows for private transactions and the ability to send and receive value while offline. So, of course, Tether is the world's largest stablecoin. I think they have well over $150 billion worth of Tether has been minted now. And the thing is about Tether is that it's been minted on these different blockchains, right? A lot of it is on ETH and Tron, right? Tron's main use case, of course, is Tether. But Paulo, the CEO of Tether, he is a Bitcoiner at heart, and he's wanted to bring Tether to Bitcoin for a long time. And now with RGB and Taproot assets, they are able to do this. what do you think about stablecoins on Bitcoin? Do you think that this will be a large driver of usage for the Bitcoin network moving forward once this gets started?
Yeah, well, I mean, originally Tether was on this thing called the Omni network before
Hmm.
Ethereum and Tron even existed. And that was like a Bitcoin, I believe it was like a Bitcoin side chain or something like that.
Mm.
So it's kind of like a return to form for that. The other thing I'm curious about with this RGB thing is like there is Tether on Bitcoin right now because they have, well, I mean, there's Tether on Lightning right now
Mm.
through things like Speed Wallet. And so I'm kind of curious. I don't even know how that functionally works. But if this is something that's like, this has like a whole privacy layer to it, which is really cool. That's kind of similar to Liquid. I think the main thing is that, you know, Tron got a lot of USDT adoption just because the fees were much lower than
Yeah.
Ethereum. And so Tron actually has this like base of users for USDT on there because of that. And I kind of wonder like, how do you win that over on the Bitcoin layer? You know, I know that, you know, it's not Tether's, you know, prerogative to kind of like pick a chain they'd rather have more people use USD to. They let the free market do that. But I sort of wonder, like us as Bitcoiners, we're not really the target demographic to use Tether. Tether's like real active users are the ones in these countries that are, you know, really affected by inflation or are unbanked and things like that. So this is a super cool addition. It's just sort of like, I wonder how we get more people into the Bitcoin ecosystem from it. That's kind of the big question I have.
Yeah, I think that's a great question that the ecosystem has is, do stablecoins lead to Bitcoin adoption, right? Where we see a lot of people in developing countries where they don't have bank accounts, they want something quote unquote stable, right? And they look at the
Mhm.
dollar as the best fiat currency, of course, and so they want to transfer whatever their local currency is into Tether. And in terms of us in the US and Canada, of course, we want a proper store of value, something that will not be debased through inflation. And so that's why Bitcoin is so attractive to us. The question is, do we have the people in the developing world transition just from saving in dollars, which is being debased, to Bitcoin? So we will see.
I mean, the brutal truth about all this is like people in the developing world like don't have savings.
Yeah.
Like this is the brutal reality I've run across in these circular economies is like we have this idea that, oh yeah, okay, so you know they'll have their spending Bitcoin and then they'll have their saving Bitcoin. And it's just like it doesn't happen quite that often. Like most
Yeah.
people are living pretty slim means. So it's nice that they have proper savings technology though. There are some people who are fortunate enough to save and now they won't have to like, I know in Argentina, people used to, or maybe they still do, they buy bricks. That's their store of value because they'll have enough bricks to expand a room in their house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they'll have
Mm-hmm.
more room to grow their business, literally brick by brick. So they have Bitcoin now, but yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, and I think that allowing for Tether and Bitcoin to be in the same wallet makes that easier, right?
Yeah.
If you are saving in dollars in Tether, then you can just transfer a little bit over to Bitcoin over time, and you can see that grow. Because if you do have limited funds, to be able to stomach a 10, 15, 20% drop is pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
But if you have both in the same wallet, you can see the little Bitcoin you have grow over time. It incentivizes you to allocate more towards it. And yeah, I think, and at the end of the day, everything is good for Bitcoin, right? So this is just another use of the network. And just getting a little bit more into the technicals here. Apollo says Bitcoin deserves a stable coin that feels truly native, lightweight, private, and scalable. With RGB, USDT gains a powerful new pathway on Bitcoin, reinforcing our belief in Bitcoin as the foundation of a freer financial future. RGB is an open source smart contract system for Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. By using client-side validation and leveraging Lightning for scalability, RGB reduces congestion on the Bitcoin blockchain while preserving privacy. So yeah, I mean, if you privacy is so important, not enough people take it seriously, but the ability to move your money in the way that you see fit and not have the eyes of corporations or governments on top of it is an important right. And so this looks like it's moving in the right direction, and I'm interested to see how this plays out. And then in other technical adoption news, we have Nunchuk Wallet. They add Miniscript support to its Bitcoin mobile wallet, allowing users to create customizable spending policies like time-locked inheritance plans, business treasuries with layered approvals, and more. So this was a big announcement that came out last week. And Nunchuk seemed like really cool cypherpunks doing the right stuff over there. And by enabling Miniscript for their wallet, there's a bunch of cool things that can be done now. As we said, time-locked inheritance plans, business treasuries with layered approvals and fallbacks, non-custodial escrow for OTC trades, private multi-party wallets that look like single sig on chain. So have you ever used Nunchuk?
I have not. I'm a big Sparrow and Electrum guy still.
Yeah.
Got to check it out.
Yeah. But it's cool to, I mean, while we're in the era of Bitcoin treasury companies, it's cool to see these abilities unlocked for Bitcoin usage.
Yeah.
Right? I think
I wonder, I mean, they don't share it if they do it, but I don't think there's many Bitcoin treasury companies that are not just using a custodian like Coinbase. I wonder Adam Back's one, the Bitcoin Standard Treasury, if they're self-custodying theirs.
Yeah, I mean, he's a part of like 5 of these things now, right? So
yeah.
But yeah, the vast majority of treasury companies, of course, are at Coinbase. BlackRock actually has diversified a little bit. I think that they have some custody over at Fidelity as well.
Okay.
But it'd be interesting to see if any of these companies would be willing to take the risk, I guess, to custody their own keys, even though it is probably at the end of the day, the safest option, because Coinbase is one big honeypot, right? There's over 3.4 million Bitcoin on exchanges right now, and Coinbase has well over 1 million of that. So,
dang.
Yeah, it's
Brian Armstrong pays $7 million a year for personal security.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They should have paid a little bit more of that money towards data security, so that my phone doesn't get called multiple times a day saying it's from.
Started on that stuff. The leaks. Ugh.
Are you getting those
calls? I
calls?
get a new phone number.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, the texts pop up all the time. Like, this is your code to restart your password on Coinbase.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Just a little technical difficulty here. Got to do this, but let's hop over to the legal section. So we have big news out of the U.S. Commerce Department. They have begun distributing the GDP data on open source blockchains, including Bitcoin, seen as a U.S. government seal of approval of the technology. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, big virtue signaling. If there's one piece of data that I wouldn't put on the blockchain, it would be the one that they've had to change like every single month for the last 12 months.
Yeah, seriously, right? I mean, you put things that you don't want lost on the Bitcoin blockchain, right?
Yeah. Permanent records.
Permanent records.
Changeable records.
Yes. And so, yeah, GDP is revised multiple times in the months following its release. And the fact that they are acting as if this is a great win for government transparency really makes very little to no sense, right?
Very silly. Very silly.
But Trump is the crypto president, right? And so to do things that look cool, and I mean to boomers out there, they hear that GDP is being released on the blockchain. It seems as if it's some newfangled, amazing leap forward in terms of government technology and how they do business, but really makes very little sense. Yeah, so that's funny, and I mean, just Howard Lutnick, of course, he formerly the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. He had to step back from that to take his role as the Commerce Secretary. His sons are now running it, and they are making a lot of these deals with the Bitcoin treasury companies, of course, with Jack Mallers 21, and also working with Adam Back for his Bitcoin Standard Treasury company. So yes, it does seem as if Bitcoin and the presidency have intertwined a bit, but it'll be interesting to see just how real and lasting these moves are. In other news in legal section, we have the CFTC is clarifying registration rules, giving non-US exchanges like Binance a path to let Americans trade and potentially bringing back crypto activity that left under Biden's regulation by enforcement. So yes, Americans have been blocked from using Binance, the main exchange, for a long time now. Is it available in Canada? Are you guys able to use?
No, they banned it 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and it's just crazy to see all these stories play out where these guys they throw charges against CZ. He pays a big fine. He goes into a low security prison for a couple months, and now he's back at it. He's free to talk about all this stuff. And now there's a path that's opening for Binance to be opened up to Americans.
It's such a 180. Like, I remember, in the depths of the bear market, everyone's like, Tether is going to be the next leg to fall after Luna and FTX. Like, they'll get exposed, and then all that paper Bitcoin will disappear. And it's just like 3 years later, Paulo is shaking hands with Trump, and they're at like a round table together. Like, who could have predicted that? I mean, that's such a unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, Paulo's at the White House, right? And we also just saw Bo Hines, who was the executive director of Trump's advisory council on crypto. He left his position to go and join Tether.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, he was a large proponent of the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and he had been saying that they were going to release the numbers, how much Bitcoin we have, how they're going to accumulate more, but that never came.
Where is it?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if that ever comes to fruition. But now that Bo Hines is with Paulo at Tether, it definitely seems as if Tether is not going away from the U.S. market, and they will find, because the Genius Act did make it clear that you need to be sanctioned or not, regulatory approval on many different levels that Tether, its native company, does not have at this moment, but they are going to make it maybe another entity to play by these new American rules. And but they've been a part of the conversation and will continue to be. That is for sure.
They have to be. They're buying all the treasuries.
They're buying all the treasuries.
20 billion and growing, right?
Yes, more treasuries owned by Tether than by Germany, right? So
one of the questions I have is I kind of wonder, like, what's the compound annual growth rate of Tether versus Bitcoin? I kind of feel like Tether's, I guess, treasury accumulation has almost been faster than Bitcoin's price appreciation.
But I mean, you see the two charts, and they go up pretty correlated.
Yeah. There's definitely a correlation, right?
Yeah.
And they're just piling all that interest into Bitcoin, so good for them.
Yeah, well, they also they have 100,000 Bitcoin, I believe. Tether has.
Yeah.
But I think that number's been pretty steady. I guess while all this Genius Act stuff was going through, they took a pause on buying. But
yeah.
But now let's see what happens. Cool. So yes, going back to the newsletter here, we have investors drop their lawsuit against Strategy, which alleged the firm exaggerated the benefits of valuing Bitcoin at market price instead of purchase cost. So there was a lawsuit against Strategy dropped when they launched the lawsuit when Strategy switched over to FASB accounting rules, but now they have dropped the lawsuit. So the lawsuit filed earlier this year accused the company of misleading shareholders about how new accounting rules would impact the Bitcoin-heavy balance sheet. The lawsuit was brought by a group of investors, and it was all, of course, about the FASB, Financial Accounting Standards Board rules. So, yeah, it seemed as if Strategy ruffled a lot of feathers this last year, but now this has all gone away. What's your opinion on Strategy at the moment and the Bitcoin treasury scene?
I think they're doing quite well. I think I'm a little like I'm a little skeptical because I have a little bit of strategy, as I always have to have like a couple shares to have like skin in the game on these things. But it feels like this expansion into other instruments for raising capital for Bitcoin on the surface is marketed as like, this is a really cool thing that we can do. We can create all these Bitcoin backed other finance instruments. But what it tells me sometimes is that like we tapped out the ATM. Like this thing is not really going to work too well. We based this whole strategy around like MNAV, and that's not going to work too well. And now we have to have like other instruments to leverage up. So I worry about their whole strategy in bear markets and having to pay all this interest, and nothing precludes them from selling Bitcoin, but now they have these like I would say quite big liabilities with these other things, and the ATM will not be used in the bear markets to buy more Bitcoin. It'll be used to cover the interest on the the strike and the stride and all the stripes and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. They're doing well. They shouldn't be taken to court, I guess, for changing strategy or changing
Accounting
accounting
rules.
rules.
Yeah.
But
Well, the
cool
change.
story. You can't judge Saylor. He's got the biggest balls in the space for sure.
Yeah, and the biggest stack.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if we look at the strategy numbers, their MNAV right now is 1.6. Definitely not nearly as rich as it was back in last fall. And because why has it gone down so much? Because you're right, they've been tapping the ATM. They've been selling shares of their common stock in order to go out and buy more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And they, as you said, they first went into convertible notes, but the demand wasn't as strong as they thought. So then they went into preferred stocks, and now these preferred stocks are offering different amounts of interest, right? And so the question is, how are they going to pay that interest? Their business strategy, business where they sell software, isn't going to bring in enough money to cover those liabilities. What are they going to have to do? They're either going to have to sell Bitcoin or sell more common shares, because that really seems to be the one way that they can get millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in order to buy more Bitcoin. So, of course,
Well, what's concerning me is like I think strategy is going to be fine. Like they have a good moat. They have the most liquidity out of any of these treasury companies. You're already seeing quite a few treasury companies trading under MNAV, and we're in like a bull market. Like just imagine what's going to happen to some of these guys. And I don't think we're going to get another 75-80% drawdown, but like if we just chill at like 30% under all-time highs, we just go sideways for a few months, like these guys are going to get pummeled. You're seeing some of them like I don't want to call too many out, but like there's Naka and Sequins, which are either trading at like already 0.78 MNAV, Empery 0.68 MNAV. And they're having their CEO go out to Twitter and be like, hey, if you buy our stock, you could be buying Bitcoin at like 67,000, which is like a complete misrepresentation to investors. I can't believe that's not a lawsuit. And it's like, damn, we're in the good times. Like that, this shouldn't be happening so early. So
yeah, it is sort of concerning that there are a bunch of these companies that are trading under 1 MNAV, and yeah, what's going to happen? That video with the Embry CEO going on and saying, like, groveling for people to buy his stock was pretty tough watch.
Yeah,
and you're right. Does it feel like to you like the bull market has sort of, are we in the last legs of it? Do you think that we're going to follow the 4-year cycle and we're going to have this fall be a blow off top and then we're done?
No, I think cycles are dead. And I know this time is different, and everyone always thinks that, we're in the super cycle. There, like, if you just look at the math, like the passive flows that are coming into Bitcoin are going to preclude these massive drawdowns, in my opinion. Because it's just like, who are the sellers? Who, like, right now, I know that it feels like Bitcoin's going nowhere because these sellers are, dumping clips of like 3,000 BTC, but they're doing that because there's like there's just this liquidity floor. They're just selling into liquidity. Like the reason you don't dump at the bottom of a bear market is because like it gets slippery. People are just like taking advantage of these exits. Like it's very hard to exit, $10 billion positions in the past, and now it's like super easy to do it. So I don't see the avalanche of selling that happens. Also, the buyer this time is not a speculator. It's like, I got my IBIT, I bought it last year. I'm up like 50, 60%. I'm not looking to sell this position unless something fundamentally changes in the Bitcoin story, right? Or, the US decides to adopt the gold standard or something. It's just like, these are not sellers betting, and getting disappointed they didn't go to 250K in a year and then just dumping for whatever they can get. They're like, nope, I get it. It's like guaranteed returns after 4 years. So I'm going to stick it out for 4 years. Right.
Yeah, and these whales have been the story of the last couple of months, where they have been awoken after a decade of sitting on their hands and seeing their Bitcoin stack grow quite large in value, and now they've got billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and they're rotating some of it out. And so last weekend we saw this one whale dump 24,000 Bitcoin in around an hour, and it dropped the Bitcoin price by about $4,000 in a very short time frame. But as you said, we've been able to eat this, right? And there is a bid around these prices, well over 100K at around this 108, 109 level. I mean, it is funny that this is the same level we were at when Trump got into office in January. So it's weird that so much has happened. All these companies have accumulated tens of thousands of Bitcoin. But I am not of the camp that it's paper Bitcoin, that these companies are buying just claims and not the actual Bitcoin itself. I do think that if you talk to some of the main on-chain analysts like Check On Chain, Checkmate, or Sani EXP, these guys are very clear that no, the treasury companies are making the actual purchases, and it's just the fact that these ancient whales they're selling some, and that's okay. If you bought Bitcoin at $10 and want to sell at 100,000, you do you.
Well, a lot of these ancient whales too, we think that they're all seeing, all smart oracles on where the price of Bitcoin is going, but a lot of them, and you could lump Adam back in there, are selling Bitcoin to get shares in these treasury companies, hoping that they can get a premium to their Bitcoin. Right? They're getting in on pipe rounds and things like that. Like it's worth a gamble. Let's just say if you have 10,000 Bitcoin, to chuck 1,000 of it into a pipe funding, get a couple shares, and then hope that you're able to sell those at a premium to the Bitcoin you put in. I think a lot of that's going on behind the scenes. It's very hard to nail down investors, but clearly there's an appetite from OGs to play this game a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, if you've got 20, 30, 40, 50,000 Bitcoin, it's your right, I guess, to play around, have some fun, and try new things. Now that we have these institutions in the game, and they're making opportunities available that were not there in the past. And speaking of institutions, institutions and institutional investors have added over 57,000 Bitcoin through ETFs in Q2, with nearly every investor class boosting exposure. So this chart was really telling, because you got the investment advisors leading the charge with 161,000 Bitcoin exposure, up 37,000 Bitcoin within just the Q2. But yeah, you've got, of course, brokerages, governments, private equity, endowment, trust. The only ones that didn't add in Q2 were the pension funds, but everybody else had increased their Bitcoin exposure to some extent in Q2. Yeah, do you think that Bitcoin has gotten the seal of approval from the institutional investor at this point, and that these guys are going to be taking the reins of the market from here on out?
Yeah, I think it's been completely de-risked. I think the thing that we're just not counting on is that these things take quarters or years for companies to establish a position on. But I don't think anybody now is doing the whole it's a Ponzi scheme if they're in institutional finance. All of them are taking serious looks, and it's just a matter of do I get my position this quarter or next quarter? One thing that I always find funny on these charts too is the government amount is so small. And I really think that Bitcoiners discount how quickly governments can move on this stuff. I'm not a fan of dictators, but the reason that governments maybe aren't stacking furiously is because they have to go through a vote and a whole process to accumulate Bitcoin. But I mean, how many countries around the world are run by dictators? You just need to convince one guy that it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then it just happens, right? Like, so, I would say it has to catch steam. I think sometimes the reason that Bitcoin isn't adopted more is just because the great material on it isn't translated into more languages, and that there is a little bit of a barrier of understanding that still needs to be bridged by certain communities and people, and there just isn't, a lot of outreach. But you gotta think, like, there's got to be governments that are looking at this as like a massive solution for a lot of their issues.
It is, but you also have to be willing to give up the power of the money printer to really embrace it, right? I mean,
Oh, I don't think so. They can just use the money printer. Like, they can print it, buy the Bitcoin, still tell all the people you got to use my fiat. Like, you can understand the soundness of Bitcoin and still be an evil dictator and force everyone to use your fiat currency.
yeah, I mean, just look at North Korea in the spring, right? They hacked Bybit, and then they, for a bunch of ETH, over $1 billion worth of ETH, and then they converted it all to Bitcoin. So I think the dictators do know that you want Bitcoin.
Well, you can think of it like this, like, just because I use a fiat currency doesn't mean that, like, my dictator doesn't want gold, right? Like, North Korea is probably sitting on a stash of gold as well. Why not add Bitcoin to the mix?
That's true. That's true. And one country to have done it right, at least in the beginning, is El Salvador. Correct. So they had their Bitcoin law in 2021, and they've been stacking Bitcoin for years now. And they have a national Bitcoin reserve. And so this weekend, they came out with the news that they are redistributing their strategic Bitcoin reserve from a single address into multiple unused ones to strengthen security, improve long-term custody, and prepare for for future risks like quantum computing. This was pretty interesting coming out just this weekend. So they have, of course, a way to go and check their Bitcoin reserves on chain, but now they are moving to different wallets capped at 500 Bitcoin each in order to protect against quantum. Quantum computers have the theoretical capability to break public-private key cryptography using Shor's algorithm. This cryptography underpins not only Bitcoin, but also many daily systems like banking, email, and communications. When a Bitcoin transaction is signed and broadcast, the public key becomes visible on the blockchain, potentially exposing the address to quantum attacks that could discover private keys and redirect funds before the transaction confirms. The reserve is being redistributed into multiple addresses, each holding up to 500 Bitcoin. Limiting funds at each address reduces exposure to quantum threats because an unused Bitcoin address with hashed public keys remains protected. Once funds are spent from an address, its public keys are revealed and vulnerable. By splitting funds into smaller amounts, the impact of a potential quantum attack is minimized. Did you see this news?
I mean, like, I kind of get it. I don't, they made a big thing out of it. At what was their reserve before the split? It was like 6,000 or something Bitcoin?
Yeah, 6,300, 400, something like that. Yeah.
They're right in the sense that, like, if I'm going to quantum attack an address, like, it's going to be probably the biggest, highest value one first. I'm not going to go for small shrimp. And they're a very public, entity, government of El Salvador. So maybe they're higher on the risk factor, but we will see quantum attacks on Bitcoin. I don't know when, but we will see someone try, and maybe by just like spark of luck, maybe like break through an address. But that gives us like a huge heads up, security wise. And I think I don't think El Salvador is in danger, but it's you got to wonder, like, why now, I guess, of all time to kind of put this out. Why do you think?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, there is a lot of questions going on right now with their Bitcoin policy, what they're doing with the IMF. The IMF clearly said that you cannot accumulate more Bitcoin once we give you this loan. They took the loan in February. And so, but the number has been going up on their website.
Super confusing, man. Someone is lying and nobody is doing the journalism or research to kind of like figure out what's going on. It's like, it looks like one Bitcoin is going into those accounts. And if that's just shuffled Bitcoin, then like it's a super misnomer to say El Salvador is buying one Bitcoin a month. So whoever's doing that is lying. If they actually are buying Bitcoin, then I don't know what the IMF is doing, because like they're very clear about like El
Yeah.
Salvador not doing that. And then they say, oh yeah, we've checked and they're not doing it. So I'm like, but they're being so public about it. So something is really weird there. And I
Yeah.
can't seem to get an answer. So
Yes. And I don't
Joe
think
Nakamoto, you go get an answer. You're good at this
yes,
stuff,
go,
not me.
go knock on Bukele's door. There are some people like this guy, Unseen Finance. He has a Substack, and he's been writing on this, and he's been very harsh in his criticism of the Bukele government and the way that they've taken this loan and not been clear with the people as to what is really going on with the Bitcoin. But I mean, it's still, I would still consider El Salvador a Bitcoin country, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
They still have the Bitcoin office. They're doing things like this, the education initiatives, Cubo Plus, the grassroots levels education, such as Me Premier Bitcoin, lots of very important Bitcoin initiatives happening in the country. And it just, if they're not allowed to buy Bitcoin for a couple of years because they took this loan in order to make their economy function, I mean, so be it. I just wish it would be a little bit more clear and upfront with us as to what was really going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, quantum is
Government for you.
that's government, right? Quantum is a threat at some point in the future. And so it's probably best that we talk about it now, get ahead of it, and be clear that there are ways to mitigate the risks, especially moving your Bitcoin to new unused addresses is probably the best way to do it right now. The real question is, what about the Bitcoin from the old addresses, like the Satoshi stash? What happens to that, and what the policy should be for those coins if quantum is a reality and can move them? So yes, it's interesting times. Interesting times. Let's bring back the newsletter. This is, of course, Bitcoin News Weekly. Our weekly newsletter comes out every Monday morning, 7 a.m. All the biggest headlines to get you caught up. Today, over in the Treasury section, is September 1st, and that means Metaplanet is having their big shareholder meeting in Japan. Metaplanet has become sort of like cult following over there, and these shareholder meetings are extravaganzas. I mean, you were there for the documentary for one of them, correct?
Yeah, we were there in the Q1 one, and that was really before the price and the like exposure blew up, but unreal. And then I don't know if you saw, I think it was like today or yesterday, they just had their like Q2 general shareholder meeting.
Yeah, that's today. Yeah.
They're up to 20,000 Bitcoin now.
Yeah.
So impressive. So impressive. You got to realize, like, they pulled off this strategy from basically nothing. You know, at least, you know, and I don't want to discredit what MicroStrategy is done, but like they had a core business, right? And they, you know, they had Saylor going, like a whole bunch of these podcasts, and kind of like convince people, you know, about the Bitcoin standard. And so he really had to market this thing in order to get the premium so that he could raise the capital to do all this stuff. And Metaplanet has kind of rode the coattails of that, but in such an interesting way, in such a different market. And they've done it in like a year and a half. They've taken it was a $10 million company to what now, like 2 or 3 billion in a year. It's pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, I think they picked the right market, right? Japan, there is a lot of friction in terms of the taxes for selling Bitcoin if you want to realize your gains. There's no ETF. So there was a bunch of things that made a Bitcoin treasury company perfect for the Japanese investor. I mean, there's in terms of investing, Japan is just such a weird place, right? I think people sit on like half of their money in cash, at least in Japan, right? Even though they've had crazy inflation for the last couple of decades. And it's been—
Well, they haven't had crazy inflation. That's been the weird part, is like within the country, there's been almost no inflation, but they've had currency devaluation. So imports are pretty terrible.
There you go. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, I mean, Japan it's been in this stagnation for 30 years, absolutely. And so for the youth, it's been hard. It's very expensive to try to get ahead, to get an apartment, to raise a family, and do all these things. And so offering a vehicle to get exposure to Bitcoin, it has garnered a lot of fans, and people are fanatics about this company over there. And I think if you walk down the street wearing a Metaplanet t-shirt, you're gonna get recognized. People are gonna say what's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yes. But yeah, at today's September 1st shareholder meeting, they have a vote to increase the number of shares from 722 million to 1.27 billion. So that's an increase of 555 million new shares. So they want to raise $880 million to go out and buy Bitcoin. Right. And they are looking to raise this money. These shares are to be sold to investors outside of Japan, actually. But yeah, as you said, this company was a zombie hotel firm, and now they've got 20,000 Bitcoin. They're number 6 on the Bitcoin Treasury list. And to have done it as early, they were one of the first movers, right? After Strategy, it was them and Semler who really did it back in the spring of 24 and made their moves. So been super impressive to see what they've been able to do. And your documentary on that is coming out when?
It's such a complex documentary. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, because like I'm one of these guys that really likes to deep dive into things. And so we were like, well, we can tell this story about what is in Japan, but if you don't understand how they got there, then none of it makes any sense. You're just like, why is the dollar stagnant? Like, why is there no deflation? What is yield curve control? What is all these things that created this environment that leads people to hoard cash? So we are doing 2 documentaries, actually. One is very light on any of the Bitcoin stuff, and it's sort of like a history of Japan's economy from like post World War II to today, and what happened, and how basically, like, in short form, they became sort of like a vassal state for U.S. interests and U.S. Financial economic policies, and became like almost like a laboratory for all the QE stuff. Everything you've ever heard out of a bank that is like a long, annoying acronym, like, started in Japan first. They were the first place to get it tested. So we have a whole documentary on that and how that affected the population and all this stuff. And then it sort of like ends on a cliffhanger and leads into the second documentary, which stands on its own, which is sort of the Metaplanet story, and how investors are trying to sort of like break this 30-year paradigm by kind of looking to Bitcoin. And then it kind of poses the question too, like, Japanese culture, does all these values in Bitcoin, does it really align with them? Is that really the reason that it's succeeding so well there? Or is it just simply like a financial decision? Right? I think that there's a whole bunch of things like, you know, the ikigai and a whole bunch of just cool things with Japanese culture and low time preference that really align with Bitcoin investing. And so, you know, my theory on it and what I'll posit in the documentary is sort of like, these guys could end up being some of the biggest holders. You know, you have one entity right now, which is Metaplanet, but like the individual investor and the value placed upon things like sovereignty could be exceptionally high in Japan once the education reaches there, versus a place like North America. So, yeah.
Yeah, when you do a documentary, you can go down the rabbit hole endlessly, right? It's hard to know when to stop. Yeah.
Also, everything's gotten like, you know, people cringe when I like say the word AI sometimes in the film space, but whatever, it's like amazing. But man, all this AI stuff has come out. Like, when we were there, remember that little phase where everyone was doing like Studio Ghibli pictures on Twitter? It was like a day where everything was Studio Ghibli, basically. And we were there in Japan when that was happening, and we're like, oh, that's kind of, you know, serendipitous. But we've been just messing, like, this is like, you'll see, it'll be one of the craziest documentaries, like, visually ever done on like a finance topic. Like, we just go balls to the walls with some cool visuals to explain everything. So
dude, I love that, especially in the exit manual too. I mean, the animations that you use are very descriptive and really pound the idea home for people to understand it, because a lot of people are not just audio learners but visual, and to see it pop up in words, it's on the screen in an attractive way, definitely helps cement the ideas in one's head. Cool. Well, right now, I would like to give a shout out to the show's sponsor. We are very thankful to have Rhino Bitcoin be the ones who are leading the charge here and sponsoring Bitcoin News Weekly. And so what is Rhino? Rhino is the all-in-one Bitcoin super app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Of course, on Rhino, you can buy or sell your Bitcoin instantly. You can send sats anywhere on the Lightning Network, and you can, of course, withdraw to cold storage, as we recommend all Bitcoiners to do. So, but when you have sats on Rhino, you can turn the sats into gift cards, or you can even link a Casa multisig, all inside just this one app. So yes, I mean, I got Rhino. I use Rhino. It's right here on my phone. Super easy to get started. And Rhino, they're just warming up. Soon you'll be able to pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and stack for retirement all within one place. So go ahead, go do it today. Download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com or just tap the link below in the description over there on YouTube. Use the code Bitcoin News, one word, Bitcoin News, and Rhino will drop you $10 in free Bitcoin straight into your account. So secure your stack, DCA with Bitcoin, use Rhino, and join the charge. Join us over at Rhino. So, Julian, as we round out today's show,
real quick, I want to build on your ad read real quick.
Please.
A lot of people are like, $10, like whatever on these.
Oh, we lost him. He'll be coming back. But yeah, we got some more stories that we want to cover before we exit today. And the biggest one, I think, well, it's the title of today's show. It's President Trump fires Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook over allegations she committed mortgage fraud. And this is the latest escalation, of course, in U.S. Trump's his attack on the central bank independence. Do we get Julian back yet? Oh, here he is.
Okay, sorry. It looks like you could censor me off there. It was just my stupid camera shutting off. Real quick, like I used to get these ad reads for Bitcoin products, and it was like, get $10 of Bitcoin if you sign up, and it was like whatever. I'm realizing now, like if I actually listened to them back when I first started hearing ads, like that $10 if I just kept the Bitcoin would have been 1,000. So like, don't sleep on them.
No.
I know it seems like nothing, but like take free Bitcoin where you can. You never know. Just like give it a shot. That's all I have to say.
There you go. Absolutely. You never know what $10 of Bitcoin can be in 10 years, right? That's a real lesson. But yes, before we round out today's show, I just wanted to talk about this Trump trying to fire a Federal Reserve governor. You are in Canada. What is your perspective on what Trump is doing over here in America from up north?
Well, we elected a central bank governor as our prime minister, so I don't think our country knows what's going on. They don't seem to care too much. It's interesting, this mortgage fraud thing. I haven't looked into it too deep, but I don't really quite see it as this hostile takeover of the Fed or anything like that. Like I think he has a pretty clear pathway to getting what he wants. It seems kind of odd to me. Like Jerome Powell's out of there in what, like April or May next year.
Mm-hmm.
He gets to kind of throw him out and I think replace a couple other governors. Like I don't quite see that firing as like a power move. I see it as sort of, I do think that he wants to discredit the Fed, but I think that comes to his own like detriment, because if you discredit the Fed and then you just fill it with your guys and then you say, oh, we love the Fed again, it just discredits the organization as like very, very partisan. As Bitcoiners, like, we discredit the Fed all the time, but we do it on our terms using sort of like the truth, not through these power moves. So Trump helps our case a little bit. But I think it's just, I think it's good to start putting this thing back in the public conversation of like, why do we have this institution? I'm always glad when he kind of like ruffles the feathers with the Fed, because it's just like, we should be questioning why we have this. Like, why do we vote this thing in 1913? Like, how's it really helped the country? And you start asking the questions, you realize like it has not helped the country. It has hurt it in every way possible.
Yeah, precisely. The dollar has lost 95% of its value since the Federal Reserve was instituted 112 years ago. It's crazy that we've lived under this this banking cartels regime for that long. And look what's happened since then, right? We've had endless war, really. World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, and all of it has been funded with the money printer by stealing the value of the dollar and printing a lot of it, so they don't have to tax you directly to do these wars, but they can have the value to go out and do things that the vast majority of Americans really don't want happening, right? And so now we see Trump wanting them to cut rates. Powell has been very hesitant to do so since he made one sort of emergency cut back in the fall that looked pretty political because it was right before the election, and he's paused cutting since then. But everything's at all-time highs, right? The stock market, Bitcoin's not far from it, real estate. And so Trump obviously wants them to cut rates so that they can reduce the interest payments that need to be made as they refinance all this debt. But cutting rates when everything is already at these elevated valuations just means that the wealth gap is going to deepen, right? Those with assets are going to continue to win because the asset prices will get pumped with lower rates. And those who haven't gotten on the house train or have stocks or Bitcoin are going to feel further and further behind. So again, no one really is in a position to win here because they're stuck. We're in this debt trap and there are no easy answers. But it just looks like a complete clown show what's going on between firing somebody for mortgage fraud that has absolutely nothing to do with her job, what she's done there, and was done before she got the position, right? So very wild stuff happening over in global monetary policy with Trump and his jolly group of Fed governors.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things I found in Japan was they used to have the Bank of Japan and the Ministry of Finance, which would be the same as like the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department. In Japan, they were like together, and the finance department in Japan controlled the Bank of Japan. So it's almost like we're doing the reverse of what they did. They split them up in the 80s, and that actually led to this crazy like deflationary, like weird environment with all the QE and weird monetary stuff. And it almost looks like we're heading towards like a convergence where the Treasury Department is kind of calling the shots on the Federal Reserve. I know it was teased potentially that like Scott Bessent could be the new Fed chair, like he would move roles over there. And obviously like Janet Yellen, you know, moved from Fed chairwoman to, you know, head of the Treasury Department, but the lines are getting blurred. And again, like you can call it Department X and Department Y, but like, you know, it's all a charade. Like it is all basically, you know, the government can control it if they really want to. And they played this little game of like independence. But I think Trump's like just getting tired of the game, and he's like, let me just like run this thing, you know. So
yeah, I do think that Fed quote unquote independence helped the narrative of a stable dollar as the world reserve currency. But as we said, the real thing is the dollar has lost 95% of its purchasing power since the Fed's been in charge. And where's it going to go over the next 10, 20, 30 years? Of course, it can go down another 95% in value.
Yeah. Well, the main thing that Trump has to worry about is like, look, we all know that the dollar's lost all its purchasing power. The question is like the dollar still remains dominant as long as it maintains as many of those qualities of sound money as it still can. Like obviously the scarcity element's out the window, but like the fungibility, the liquidity and all this stuff is still vastly superior to a lot of other fiat currencies. If that starts to change from little tiny decisions, and the dollar will lose its reserve status. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like I don't know who it goes to next. It's certainly a lot of people think it might be the Chinese yuan, but that doesn't really make sense to me because of the censorship and the fungibility of that. But the world is just like coping with the dollar as the reserve currency. I don't think anybody's really happy with it right now.
Yeah, and America isn't either, right? We lost all our manufacturing, and it's not the best position to be in. Right? But I mean, the answer is right there in your face. Is this? This is going to be the new neutral reserve currency,
I have
right?
it on my desk too.
All right, Julian, thank you so much. This has been our hour. If people want to find Get Based, the exit manual, more of your stuff, where should they go?
At GetBasedTV on YouTube, youtube.com/@GetBasedTV. That's where we put all our documentaries, our big productions, and then my new show, Exit Manual, is youtube.com/@ExitManual. We are almost at 1,000 subs. I can't believe it, in like 4 days. We've got a new show coming out every Thursday, dropping. Would love to hear your guys' feedback if there's topics you want me to cover. If there are things you've been trying to get to your no coiner or pre-coiner friends and you just haven't been able to get through, like let me know and I'll try and make a video about it.
Cool. Yeah, great advice. Go over there, subscribe here if you aren't subscribed yet. Hit that like button, share this video, and yeah, our job here is to make the news easy, digestible, and get the word out about the orange coin. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week. This has been Rob Wallace with Bitcoin News Weekly. Until next time.
Peace.